At 1:17 in the morning, 3 people came to the funeral home asking for Tom Blake's property envelope. They knew his room number, they knew his sister's name, and they knew there was a black fountain pen sealed inside. Tom had been dead for 38 minutes. His body had barely arrived. His real family still believed he was alive, but somehow, those 3 people had gotten there first. This is the last broadcast files. I remember the exact time because I had just written 12:39 a.m. on Tom's intake form. I worked nights at Harwood Funeral Home. It was a small place. 1 chapel, 2 arrangement rooms, a preparation area, and a garage in the back for transfers. After midnight, I was usually the only person there. Most of the job was quiet. Phones, paperwork, locking doors. Nothing like people imagine. The dead were never the part that frightened me. That night, one of our drivers brought Tom Blake from Pine Ridge Assisted Living. He was 68. The deputy who responded to the death had not found anything suspicious. Tom had apparently gone to bed early and never woke up. He had prepaid for his cremation years before, so Pine Ridge already knew where to send him. His paperwork listed one relative, Susan Blake, sister. Beside her number, the nurse had written, "No answer, not yet notified." Tom's belongings came in a brown paper envelope sealed with red security tape. I could feel a wallet and keys through the paper. There was also a long, narrow object inside. I assumed it was a pen. I signed the property log, locked the envelope in the intake cabinet, and started entering Tom's information into our system. 38 minutes later, the front bell rang. 3 people were standing outside. A woman stood closest to the glass. She looked to be in her late 40s. An older man stood beside her, holding a folded winter hat in both hands. The third person was younger, maybe 30. He stayed several steps behind them. The woman said she was Tom's daughter. She introduced the older man as Tom's brother and the younger man as her son. Then she began telling me things. Tom's full name, his birth date, his apartment number at Pine Ridge. She knew he had a pacemaker. She knew Susan Blake lived near Cleveland. Everything matched the paperwork in front of me. She said someone from Harwood had called and told them Tom had been brought in. I asked who had called. She looked at the older man. Then she said, "A gentleman." I didn't catch his name. There were no other gentlemen working that night. I should have left the door locked, but the woman had identification with the last name Blake. The photograph looked like her, at least through the glass. The older man looked devastated, and it was January, so I let them inside. I kept thinking about that afterward, how normal they looked. That was the reason it worked. I took them into the smaller arrangement room. The woman sat nearest the door. The older man stayed in the corner. The younger man did not sit at all. I asked whether they wanted me to contact the director. "No," the woman said. "We only came for Tom's things." She did not ask how he had died. She did not ask whether she could see him. She asked for the property envelope. I explained that personal effects could only be released to the legal next of kin after identification had been confirmed. "That's fine," she said. "We only need his keys, his silver watch, and the black fountain pen." I looked toward the intake cabinet. The property sheet only said personal effects. It did not list individual objects. I asked how she knew what was inside. "My father carried that pen everywhere." The older man looked up. "No, he didn't." The woman turned toward him. He seemed to realize he had said something wrong. "He stopped carrying it," he added, "a while ago." The woman continued looking at him. It lasted just a little too long. Then the younger man asked where the restroom was. I pointed down the staff hallway. "First door on your left." He walked past it. The second door was the intake office. I called after him. He stopped with his hand near the handle. "Sorry," he said. "I thought you said the second door." His voice was calm, almost amused. When he came back, I told the woman I needed to speak to my manager before releasing anything. She checked her phone. "We have a flight at 6. I still need approval." She leaned closer to me. "You can keep the money," she said. "Keep the wallet. Keep the watch." Her voice dropped. "We just need the pen." That was when I stopped believing any of them. I removed Tom's envelope from the cabinet and placed it in the drop safe under the reception counter. Once something went inside, I could not open the safe. Only the director had the key. The woman watched me through the glass wall. I tried calling my manager. No answer. Then I called Pine Ridge. A nurse picked up after several rings. I gave her Tom's name and asked if anyone had reached his family. "No," she said. "The deputy is still trying his sister." I looked into the arrangement room. All 3 visitors were staring at me now. I asked if Tom had a daughter. The nurse hesitated. "Tom never had children." My stomach dropped. I told her 3 people were sitting inside the funeral home claiming to be his family. "Lock yourself in an office," she said. I hung up and told the woman the police were already on their way. That was a lie. I had not called them yet. For a second, nobody moved. Then the woman stood and put on her coat. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said. The older man followed her toward the lobby. The younger man stayed behind. The woman looked at him. Not obviously, just a glance. Then he followed them out. I watched all 3 cross the parking lot. They reached a dark sedan near the road. The woman and the older man got inside. The younger man opened the rear door. At least, I thought he did. The car pulled away without its headlights. I locked the entrance and called 911. I remember feeling embarrassed while I spoke to the dispatcher. I thought I had caught 3 people trying to steal a dead man's wallet. Then I looked at the security monitor. The camera above the entrance showed the woman and the older man leaving. The younger man never crossed the lobby. I replayed the footage. While I was calling Pine Ridge, he had slipped through the staff door behind the reception desk. The person I saw near the car had been the older man's reflection in the lobby glass. The younger man was still inside. I told the dispatcher. Then I heard the intake cabinet open. I went into the records office and locked the door. The dispatcher told me officers were several minutes away. On the security monitor, the younger man came out of the intake room. I saw him holding a screwdriver. He tried the cabinet, then the desk drawers. Then he crouched in front of the drop safe. He already knew where I had put the envelope. He pressed his ear against the metal. Then he looked directly into the security camera. The hallway lights went out. He had found the breaker panel. The monitor changed to grainy infrared. I could see him walking toward the records office, slowly. The shadow beneath my door stopped moving. He tried the handle once. Then he said my name. "Evan." I told myself he had seen the nameplate on the desk. Then he said, "Your car is behind the garage, right?" I did not answer. A second later, something slid beneath the door. It was a photograph, a picture of me getting out of my car earlier that night. It had been taken from across the road. The time printed in the corner was 11:52 p.m. Someone had written 2 words underneath it. "Alone. Tonight." The screwdriver entered the gap beside the lock. He started working it back and forth. Not quickly, not angrily, like he knew he had time. Then his phone rang. He answered in a whisper. "No, it's in the drop safe." He listened. Then he replied, "I can't open it." Another pause. Then he looked toward my door. "He knows." I heard a woman's voice through the phone, but I could not understand the words. He ended the call. Then he said, "Tom recorded more than you think." I still said nothing. The lock shifted. I grabbed a metal file tray from the desk. It was a ridiculous thing to hold, but there was nothing else. I heard the wood around the lock begin to crack. The police were still not there. So I did the only thing I could think of. There was a switch beneath the desk that opened the rear garage door for transfer vehicles. I pressed it. The motor started immediately. The large metal door began rising behind him. Cold air rushed through the building. The younger man spun around. From where he stood, he could not see whether it was a police vehicle, an employee, or someone else entering. I hit the preparation room lights. Then I shouted, "Back hallway." It was stupid, but it worked. He ran, not toward the garage. He went through the preparation room, knocked over a transfer cart, and forced open a side exit. Police arrived less than a minute later. They searched the building and the grounds. He was gone. They found the screwdriver near the side door. They also found a cheap prepaid phone he had dropped in the hallway. The last incoming call had come from a number registered to Tom Blake. Tom's phone was still inside the sealed property envelope. The caller had spoofed his number. Tom's real sister arrived the following afternoon. Susan looked exhausted. She had driven from Cleveland without stopping. When our director explained what had happened, she did not ask about the wallet or the watch. She asked, "Did they get the pen?" Police opened the envelope with her permission. The black fountain pen looked ordinary. Inside the barrel was a tiny digital recorder. Susan told us Tom had called her 2 days before he died. He believed someone at Pine Ridge was passing information about dead residents to thieves, names, family contacts, apartment numbers, funeral plans, whether the person lived alone, how long it would take relatives to arrive. The thieves would reach the funeral home first and collect the property envelope. If they got the keys, they could empty the person's home before the family even knew there had been a death. Tom had watched it happen to another resident. Nobody believed him, so he started recording conversations. The pen contained hours of audio. In one recording, Tom confronted the same woman who had stood in our arrangement room. He told her he knew what she was doing. She asked whether he had gone to the police. "Not yet," Tom said. "Then where's the recording? I carry it with me." The woman laughed quietly. Tom asked what was funny. She said, "Because when you die, that pen goes wherever you go." A man's voice spoke after that. He asked which funeral home Tom had selected. The woman answered, "Harwood." Then she said, "One attendant after midnight." The recording had been made 6 days before Tom died. Police traced the leak to a temporary records employee at Pine Ridge. She disappeared the morning after the break-in. They never found her. They never found the 3 people who came to Harwood either. For a long time, I blamed myself for opening the door. Now I think about the photograph they pushed beneath the office door. They had not simply learned that Tom was dead. They knew where his body would be taken. They knew what he was carrying. They knew who would be working when he arrived. And they were outside watching me before the transfer vehicle even pulled into the garage. Tom's family was still waiting for a phone call. But the people who wanted his secret were already waiting across the street.